Your city. Listen live at KBLA 1580 AM on our free KBLA 1580 app or on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
Welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm actually excited for the weekend, Andy. It is such a, I was saying earlier, it's such a lovely day out. It feels like it's always summertime in LA, but something has shifted a little bit, right? Like, I feel like I'm ready to be out in these streets dancing to music. I am your host here at the Black Pack, Adrianne Shropshire, and I'm glad you could join me on this lovely Friday afternoon here in the heart of Black LA at the KBLA headquarters. We have a great show planned for you all today. As always, we're going to continue our 2026 midterm election coverage from last week when we talked about what's at stake in North Carolina this year. Of course, we talked with Marcus Bass from Advanced Carolina about the U.S. Senate race that's up there, about an incredibly tough fight that's looming for the state's lone Black woman state Supreme Court justice. And this week, we're going to be joined by Kendra Cotton, who leads an organization in Georgia called the High Opportunity Voter Project that has been out registering Black voters across the state of Georgia, making sure that folks are prepared for Georgia's May 19th Democratic and Republican primaries. I think, I say every week that the midterms are not coming, they're here. And for Georgia, that primary is right around the corner. Voters in Georgia will go to the polls. They're going to decide who from a very crowded field of gubernatorial candidates will advance to the general election in November. And honestly, their governor's race is a little bit like ours. It's very crowded. It's a little messy, right? On both sides of the political spectrum, they have a partisan primary. So they're going to have a Democratic primary and a Republican primary, different than we have here in California, but it's very crowded, and they will sort it out on May 19th. We'll also see Senator John Ossoff, who is running unopposed in the Democratic primary, running for re-election to his Senate seat, but his victory in November is not a given, and we're going to talk to Kendra about what the landscape looks like for that race. So we'll break all of that down and how voters in the state are feeling about this year's midterm elections. In coming up, we're going to be joined by Anoa Changa-Peck and Mondale Robinson, who is the executive director of the Black Male Voter Project. We're going to break down some of the news of the week, but we're also going to get an update from Mondale about some local fights that are beginning to emerge that I know you all have heard about. They're beginning to emerge, pushing back against the growing scourge of data centers being built near our communities and our skyrocketing utility bills for residents and creating all kinds of environmental damage and the potential for environmental damage down the line. And so we've been seeing that emerge and people fighting back. And we're going to get an update on a fight in North Carolina. in the week that is Earth Day, or the month that is Earth Month, and the week that gave us Earth Day. So we're going to get into that when we come forward. But I wanted to do a little bit of Black history today. So we've been talking a lot here and there because of the moment that we're in this country about Reconstruction and the period that came immediately afterwards, right? The little bit of Black history, and Andy, I don't know if you know this, but I'm gonna share what I learned today. That on this day, in April 24th, 1877, the last federal troops departed from New Orleans on the order of President Rutherford B. Hayes, effectively bringing an end to the nation's greatest attempt to make real its promise of a true multiracial democracy. So on this day in Black history, Reconstruction came to an end. When Rutherford B. Hayes pulled out the final set of troops, federal troops that were in New Orleans. Now, the withdrawal of the troops, as we know, that were sent there, right, to protect the newly freed African Americans and their civil rights, was actually a compromise, right, that followed the disputed outcome of the previous year's presidential election in 1876. And so Rutherford B. Hayes essentially said to the Southern Democrats that if they would acknowledge his presidency, he would remove the federal troops and let them do whatever they wanted to in the South. We know that this led to the rise of Jim Crow, the removal of duly elected Black elected officials from office. I think we just actually saw the attempt to remove a duly elected Black elected official in New Orleans just the other day. We also know that it gave rise to voter suppression against Black voters who had just gotten the right to vote, the return of Black codes, racial violence, and the rise of the Klan. So on this day, we saw the end of Reconstruction. And I talked about this recently with Vince Warren from the Center for Constitutional Rights. And so Andy, I think we have a clip of Vince talking about Reconstruction and what that might mean for us today.
We had civil rights laws that were passed in 1877, and we have the Reconstruction laws that were passed in the Reconstruction Amendments. I would say that we traveled farther between 1865, when the Civil War ended, to 1877. It wasn't very long. We traveled farther in that space than we have on almost any other period in history. So if we think about where are we now 12 years from now, so even if the Supreme Court says Congress did not intend for Black people to thrive, what Congress meant by the 14th Amendment is that white people can't be discriminated against. That calls on Congress to pass a range of historic civil rights bills that corrects the record.
So one of the things that Vince went on to say when I was talking to him is that when he said we traveled, further than we have in this country's history in that 12 years, he was really making the point that if we think about this period of time that we're in, this chaos that we are currently existing in, if we think about that coming to an end with the next two election cycles, the sort of the ability to take back Congress and the ability to take back the Oval Office, that could you imagine a 12-year period where we work hard once again to sort of reestablish this country being back on track toward the realization of a true multiracial democracy that's grounded and based in justice. So I thought that was really hopeful when we think about a day like today, where we saw the end of Reconstruction, but we know how much was done during Reconstruction, and the reality is that we have the opportunity to work as hard as our ancestors did to bring about that period, and we are living in that period right now. So it says something about the opportunity that we have even in the midst of this chaos. So we're gonna, when we come forward, we're gonna be joined by Anoa Changa-Peck and Mondale Robinson to break down the news, but also maybe get a little bit more inspiration about fights that are happening around the country that we should all be paying attention to. This is the Black Pack. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Progressive's accident response can detect and send help when you need it most, after a major car accident. But other accidents, you're on your own. Like when you accidentally call your wife Mom. When you accidentally say Happy Holidays on someone's birthday. When you accidentally wave at someone you thought was waving at you. We can't help with those accidents, but Progressive's accident response provides peace of mind after major car accidents. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Limited availability in California. Driver is responsible for emergency and towing charges not covered by the policy.
Indeed presents hires you can't afford to get wrong, like a staff accountant at the height of tax season.
Congrats. Looks like the company owes, $50 in taxes. How about that?
That seems low. Why only 50?
Why do you care so much? It's not your money.
This is a job for sponsored jobs. This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Bakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to The Black Pack, and we are actually joined now by Anoa Changapek, who you all know and breaks down the news with me with some regularity here on the news, but also by a special guest, maybe I should say surprise guest even, Mondale Robinson, the executive director of the Black Male Voter Project. Welcome to you both, and welcome, Mondale. It's been a minute.
It's been too long, sis.
I appreciate you joining. Anoa, you there?
I'm here. Good evening, you both.
So I wanted to start us off. Mondale, I had some specific questions I want to talk to you about, some updates on the work that you all are doing. But before we get into that, one of the things that Anoa and I generally do when we're together on the Black Pack show is to sort of break down the news. And one of the things that I always ask Anoa, and I'm going to ask her now, but Mondale, I'm going to ask you since you are our special surprise guest. So there's a lot of news every week, and it's always kind of wild. And it is unrelenting on many days, which is why I feel like sometimes we need to take the time to just sort of pull some of the things out and discuss them. But it's also, for me to look at all the news and say, like, what was the most bonkers thing that happened this week? Like, what is the thing that, out of all of the craziness that is going on, what was the most bonkers thing that happened? And so I guess that is my question to both of you, and I'll start with you, Mondale. For you, either nationally or locally, what is the most bonkers thing that you saw in the news this week?
Yeah, I mean, listen, honestly, I'm going to sound selfish because I'm also a mayor in North Carolina, and this week our state legislature took up a local bill that will give, it's Senate Bill 214, will give the county Franklin, a majority white county, the right to property and interest in property for 3 majority black counties if they want to, through condemnation, like condemning property so they can take it. This is all about Franklin County trying to attract a data center, and they don't have enough water to cool said data center down. So they said, you can not take water from Carr Lake, which is where these white people like to go fish and kayak, but you can have the water from Halifax County, 56% black, Warren County, 50% black, and also Vance County, 50% black, without the approval or consent of the duly elected county boards. That is bonkers.
Yeah, that is bonkers. Actually, this is the thing I wanted to ask you about, because I was also, we know, I think that we've been seeing the controversy and the fight back, right, around these data centers around the country. We just saw, I think, in Kentucky, in fact, a black community was basically given 90 days to move, right, because they were taking properties. I think this is exactly what you're saying, right? They were taking properties and essentially said you have 90 days to move out because this data center is coming in. I think maybe we'll just spend a second on this here. So the reality is that the state legislature has essentially said to one county, you can take assets out this other county. Is that right?
So basically, and honestly, this is bigger than the data center itself. Mm-hmm. It's giving them a broad range of access. It's about the water, of course, but it says property and interest in property. Right. So what does it say that it stops there? And it also says that the black people in these counties, we don't care about your rights. Because white people, this 70% white county, frankly, didn't go to any of the white counties near to it. It went to all of the black counties. So that's already telling our people, much like in the past, that you don't have rights that white people are to respect. And to take it a step further, whenever in North Carolina the Senate takes up a local thing, something that does not affect the entire state, the governor loses the right to veto it. Even if the governor was amenable to vetoing this, these crazy white folk have already secured a way that it cannot happen. This is so dangerous because it sets a precedent, not just for the water in this black county. We just found out that these counties are also rich in other resources in the ground. So now, Vance County, if this passed, by default has a right to anything it wants in that county. That sounds like the rape that our community has suffered through from white people. It sounds like slavery. It sounds like all of America's history all over again.
And then just the theft of property, I think, that was the thing that stuck out to me in Kentucky, which is, and we know that there is a long history of eminent domaining, people's property, of just going in and taking people's property because you decide back in the day, right, when there was no eminent domain, just taking people's property because you decided that you wanted it. And that's what this sounds like that you all are experiencing. And so what is the pushback? Are folks aware that this is happening? Is there an effort to organize folks around stopping this? Talk to us about that.
So I'm actually I've been ringing the alarm since it happened on Tuesday. Our state rep is talking about it, Rodney Pierce. I'm literally trying to organize because they're going to vote on it Tuesday at 4 p.m.
Oh, wow.
So I'm literally trying to organize buses of people from Vance, Halifax, and also Warren County, but people from all over the state to meet us at the Capitol at before 4 so that we can tell these people, not on our watch. You're not going to get away with this.
So there's a hearing. I assume that there's a hearing that's happening on Tuesday that you're trying to mobilize folks to, or is it?
Yep.
Is that?
I'm trying to mobilize people to the hearing at the state capitol.
Okay, all right. Well, that's bonkers. So you certainly are taking us in the right direction right off the bat. But these are fights that are emerging across the country as these tech companies decide that they need more and more and more, right? And I think the potential environmental implications are becoming clearer and clearer to communities around the country. And Noah, what about you on what's the most bonkers thing of the week?
Yeah, the urban planner student in me is just like, that is wild. That's something straight out of a case book. I'm listening to Mondale's story, but I'm thinking about the SPLC and the indictment that came down this week. I mean, it's one of several frivolous, ridiculous attempts by the Trump administration, by the president, to weaponize the DOJ, the FBI, to go after people who are his political enemies, right? You're literally going after the people that have helped, marginalize and get the KKK or have infiltrated extremist groups like those that were behind the Unite the Right rally in 2017, so almost 10 years ago. So this has been a very consistent thing, and it's not just the Trump administration. It is just white supremacy in general, right? The way in which it has reared its ugly head, whether it was way back during Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era after, but trying to normalize and make itself a part of the mainstream and push those that are fighting back as if they are really the problem in the opposition. And so just seeing all that unfold, and we know the other attacks have already happened on civil rights groups, on people who are speaking up against fascism and stuff. So just seeing the response, but then also just the way the government is stepping up even bigger, bolder, and badder with their lives is just really wild.
Well, yes, very wild. And let's just level set for folks who maybe heard about the indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center, but maybe didn't pay too much attention. So just to level set, the federal government came after the Southern Poverty Law Center, and if folks are wondering, who the Southern Poverty Law Center is, as Anoa said, they have been fighting for civil rights for a long time. But these are also the folks who do the hate watch, right? So they are the groups who go after hate groups in this country and take them down. They essentially defunded the Klan, right? And the way that they have been able to do that is that they pay informants to go inside of these hate groups and get information, get evidence of these groups' illegal activities. And so the Justice Department has decided, as they have decided, that any potential enemy of the president of the United States needs to be under investigation. They are coming after civil rights groups of all kinds, including groups here in Los Angeles. And they decided to indict SPLC. Now, the crazy thing that they're saying, and Mondale, I would love to get your take on this too. The crazy thing, the way that they're sort of the narrative that they are trying to go with here, which is completely insane, is that in fact, SPLC wasn't trying to take down the hate groups, that they were in fact funding the hate groups, right? So they're essentially trying to say that because they were paying informants, that was them actually paying and giving life to racism, to pay to keep racism alive, so that then they could fight the racism. So it's all Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, just said today that they funded the hoax that was Charlottesville, right? Because they, alleging that they were paying informants, and those informants created this hoax that led to Charlottesville. And you all remember Charlottesville in 2017, the tiki torches, the yelling of Jews will not replace us, and where a young woman named Heather Heyer was murdered when a car ran her down. Now, the White House is saying that was all a hoax and that it was funded by the very organization who has been fighting for decades now to take out hate groups. That's what the lawsuit essentially says. It seems to me that it's baseless, and like with all of their lawsuits, it's sort of frivolous and won't stand up in court, much like the Comey indictment. But I don't know, Mondale, what do you think about what the White House and the Justice Department did with regard to this suit against SPLC?
I listen. I love my white liberal friends, but I need them to stop standing in the street talking about no King's March. We have a king in America. Donald Trump's title might not be king, but he's acting as a king. You people throw rocks at his supporters, i.e. racist. This is what happens to them. And they can call it a hoax all they want to. I'm actually, this whole segment is way too personal for comfort for me, because the Loyal White Knights, which is the chapter that actually plans Charlottesville, is also the chapter that is responsible for the death threats that I get.
Mm-hmm.
They literally put their name on papers and leaflets that they put in our yard in Enfield. It wasn't no hoax. It happened in real life. And the fact that they are calling the informants on these people the leaders of this movement, it is the same energy that they were saying about the J6ers, that there was FBI infiltrants that paid informants. It is absolutely asinine for anybody who calls himself a patriot or a law-abiding citizen at this point to pretend that America is a democracy, to pretend that we are functioning like a normal society outside of a strongman or authoritarian society, or to pretend that there's something superior about the way that we're carrying on and using and weaponizing the justice system to say everything that is white supremacy and go after everything that's trying to attack it.
Yeah, I think, and that's a good, I mean, and we know this, right? And we say this all the time, this sort of weaponizing of the Justice Department, to take out political opponents, whether that's organizations or it's elected officials, right? That's what we're seeing from the Trump administration, and this going after SPLC is no different than that, right? They're essentially punishing them for taking out the Klan. That's really what this is. And it's kind of, when we talk about things being upside down, we see this is a perfect example of things being upside down. Okay, so I'm gonna, in the last 2 minutes that we have here, I'm gonna say that my most bonkers thing of the week is about elections, right? And so we've been seeing this map war going back and forth with Donald Trump saying he's gonna, tell Republican state legislatures to redraw maps so that he can win during the midterms. We saw California fight back. We saw other states fight back. And then on Tuesday, we saw Virginia have a referendum on their ballot that where voters went in Virginia. Voters of Virginia went. They vote to draw new maps. Virginia, at the end of the day, they passed the new maps. And so Virginia's supposed to have new maps that they will use for November. And then the very next day, a Republican-appointed judge came out and said, actually, I'm going to invalidate the entire election. I'm going to overthrow the will of the people to have the kind of representation that they want to be able to have. I'm going to invalidate and throw that out. Now, obviously, the state attorney general in Virginia is appealing that. And so we'll see what happens. It'll go to their Supreme Court. Their Supreme Court has already said that the maps were legal and the referendum was legal. So I imagine that the undermining of the election will be thrown out. But it's just so crazy how people go out and vote and then other folks say, nope, sorry, we don't care what you think. We're throwing your vote out. At the same time, they're saying that there's fraud, right? Or election integrity is under assault. They are doing the actual things. So we are, going to continue this conversation with Anoa and with Mondale when we come forward and talk a little bit more about the news, but also about some of the local stuff that's happening, Mondale, that I hope that you will bring some additional insights to what Marcus Bass gave to us last week about what is happening in North Carolina. So this is Black Pack. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Several Chicago public schools parents are pushing back on the district's planned May Day civic activities.
Heaven forbid one child gets lost, that one thing happens to them.
Black CPS CEO Macklin King says no student will be required to take part, while some parents also object to teachers being paid during school hours for what they see as political activity. A former University of Michigan staffer says she became pregnant during her affair with former football coach Sharon Moore, who was black, but ended the pregnancy because of health concerns. Paige Shiver shared the claim in a recent Good Morning America interview, saying the relationship began in 2022 and was widely known in Wolverines athletics. And a South Carolina man convicted of burning a cross to intimidate his black neighbors is now facing federal charges. Prosecutors say Warden Evander Butler burned the cross in his Horry County backyard in 2023 and made threatening posts online. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A classic move by Rams management during day one Thursday night of the NFL Draft. Head coach Sean McVay called Matthew Stafford to let him know they were going to select Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson with their first-round pick. After drafting Simpson, McVay told reporters that the Rams are still Stafford's team. Simpson appears to be the Rams quarterback of the future whenever the 38-year-old Stafford decides to retire. The Lakers are in Houston tonight for Game 3. The Lakers have a 2-0 lead in the best-of-7 first-round series. Tonight at 6, it's your Friday night sports fix. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds. 60 minutes of sports chatter with some black folks flavor. You can hang out with us on the KBLA YouTube channel or hit us up at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Every day on KBLA Talk 1580, it's like a live town hall meeting over the airwaves. Politics, culture, community, justice, nothing is off the table. We take more listener calls, spark more honest conversations, and challenge more assumptions than any talk station in Southern California. Because good ideas matter more than ideology. KBLA Talk 1580, your station, your voice, your city. Listen live at KBLA 1580 AM on our free KBLA 1580 app or on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
You better work.
She's rooted in culture and rising in power. Los Angeles City Council member Karen D. Price Jr. invites you to the District 9 Women's Leadership Summit, a powerful gathering celebrating the women who shape our communities. Join us Sunday, May 3rd from 1 to 6 p.m. Registration is open now, but space is limited. District 9 residents receive special priority. This event is free. Call 323-846-2651 to reserve your spot. That's 323-846-2651. Be rooted, be powerful, be there.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Fay Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at wootencenter.org. That's wootencenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and we are continuing our conversation with Anoa Changa-Peck and Mondale Robinson, Executive Director of the Black Male Voter Project. So before the break, we were talking about this election that happened in North Carolina. I'm sorry, in Virginia. I'm giving y'all elections that you ain't even had, Mondale. And this sort of and I went through it really quickly, but it is sort of, a crazy reality that voters in Virginia went to the polls and said, we want to temporarily redraw our maps to sort of level the playing field, balance out what Donald Trump is trying to do in other states. And that the next day, a Republican appointed judge says, yeah, no, you're not doing that. So we'll see how that plays out, and folks should pay attention to that story. I imagine that the Supreme Court, who's already said twice that this is legal and that there was no reason to stop the referendum from going forward, so that should work itself out. But the reality, though, Mondale, is that states across the country have been pushing back against Donald Trump's effort to rig the 2026 election in his favor, right? Understanding that he needs a favorable Congress in order for him to be able to continue to do the damage that he's doing to the country. And so folks are saying, no, you can't have our voter files, right? Folks are saying, well, we're in a place like Indiana, like, no, you can't, we're not gonna redraw our maps. But in North Carolina, your state actually, you all state legislature actually, or election officials actually complied with the DOJ's, the Department of Justice's demand for your unredacted voter file. Now, I imagine that creates larger problems for folks like the Black Male Voter Project and others who are the Advanced Carolina and others in the state, A. Philip Randolph Institute, who are trying to ensure that voters are informed and mobilized and are able to actually cast their ballot and have it counted. But how does that create challenges for you all when you're trying to make sure that every vote is counted and that every voter has the opportunity to cast a ballot?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think much like what we've seen in Virginia, where the Supreme Court didn't just say no twice, it said no to this judge twice. It was this judge in January and February, the same judge who ruled on Wednesday that the Supreme Court said you're out of your league and this is ridiculous.
Right.
I think North Carolina is just like that. The first district, which has historically elected a black candidate, has now been packed with third district Republicans to make this district harder for black people to have representation. And I think this, and it is important that people understand that this is Eva Clayton's old district, and it was like the first district to send a black woman to the Congress. So we are used to this. I think the problem, though, is we have a broader problem at play. We have the opportunity right now, honestly, if we had our things together in our state, to send 7 black people to Congress. We have 7 black people that are running seats that actually are candidates that could win, but they've all, for the most part, either been silent on black issues, been afraid to be black out loud, or they're running a race that looks like a traditional race that is not effective at reaching our voters. So along with the work that must be done by the organizations you named and so many others in the state that are connected to community year-round, we have candidates that are running campaigns that are simply designed to make white people richer and leave our people out. And that is a sad thing. I mean, we're turning over field programs instead of being candidate-specific. We're turning them over to the coordinated campaign that is adequately, woefully underprepared for what reality we are facing right now. And I also think I see our people getting comfortable with this idea that the Senate race is going to make sure that everybody is good, and that even in some cases they're thinking North Carolina Senate race is going to guarantee victory for the Senate candidate. And I think without the work that's necessary, we run the risk of people hanging curtains like we saw in 2016 with the Hillary Clinton campaign before it's time to count votes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit last week with Marcus, that Roy Cooper, very popular governor of North Carolina, is running for the Senate seat, and is doing quite well, raising tons of money, doing well with the base of voters that he needs to pull together for his coalition. But nothing is guaranteed. And the other thing that Marcus raised that I think is important, the point that you're making about people maybe feeling comfortable, and I think we're seeing this in many places, right, across the country with the election right now, is people feeling like because they've heard that there's going to be a blue wave, right, or they've heard that people are going to show up, that there's a little bit like, oh, okay, well, we got this, right, without. And that's just simply not true. Like that's not a reality. Like that, there's work that needs to be done. But it sounds like that's a little bit what you're saying, Mondale, and particularly for you because you all have the congressional races that are important. You have the Senate race, which is important, but you also have this very important Supreme Court race, where if people decide that they're going to stay home or that they feel like they don't have to do the extra effort because they think everything is good, the potential trickle down effect, right? All the way down the ballot could be enormously painful for North Carolinians.
North Carolinians and others, right? Like because we not only have to win North Carolina, but North Carolina also affects what happens. North Carolina Senate, Democratic Senate from North Carolina affects this entire country, especially if we send Ossoff back from Georgia. And I think what people are forgetting is that. The candidate I supported in the last presidential election had more money than the candidate she lost to. So while our candidate is raising more money at this moment, anybody that believes that an adequate field program is not sufficient or necessary for not just the candidate and the campaign, but for organizations that are doing this work throughout this ethos is missing the point. We and I think our donors are part of this comfort level. We are seeing money move slower to organizations on the ground right now. People at this time when we should be talking and having more conversations at the door, people are trying to turn their back on this idea and think that a social media only program is how we win these elections in this moment. I think that short-sightedness and the people getting comfortable listening to polls are saying that maybe influencers are the way, right, are setting us up for a failure that we don't need to fall.
So you're raising a point that I think that is this is not going to bubble up to the surface of a newspaper, right? Or this is not going to bubble up to the surface of MS Now. I think that's what MSNBC is called now. MS Now. It's not going to bubble up on cable news, right? There is this, and I talk all the time about these sort of like internal fights inside the Democratic Party, right? So there's this internal fight that's basically, that's sort of like, well, we need to go after the disaffected Trump voters, right? And bring them in, and we should not talk about whatever they think they call woke, right? So there's that battle inside the Democratic Party and its ecosystem, I would say, not just the party, but its entire ecosystem, including consultants, et cetera. And there's this other battle that's happening that is essentially saying we don't need to send people out into the streets to knock on doors anymore. That's too expensive and it doesn't really work. And so instead of, paying for neighborhood people to go talk to their neighbors about why it's important for our community to turn out and vote, we're just going to spend the money on social media because they've decided that what we really just need is a Joe Rogan of the left. And if we could just get a Joe Rogan of the left, then everything would be great. And so there's this sort of, inverted attempt to turn out voters and black voters like they know best how to turn out black voters. And so that's the thing that you're raising, which isn't a part of any public conversation that I've ever heard, that you now have both strategists, consultants, and donors saying, I don't know, should we be investing in these field operations that send, people with trusted messengers into communities and knock on doors? They're essentially saying we shouldn't do that. And so I'm glad you raised that, both because it's not a conversation that actually happens out in public, but it's also about, who determines what kind of strategy for mobilizing voters during critical elections, whose voice gets heard when money starts to get moved. So I'm glad that you raised that. I want to actually talk about that a little bit more, and the question about sort of the broader question about how do we combat some of this and the challenges that we're facing when we come forward with Anoa Changa and Mondale Robinson. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelinos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-478-6430 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-478-6430. That's 800-478-6430. What do you have to lose? Call 800-478-6430. Again, 800-478-6430.
Turn the dial to where the truth lives. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
The joint will be jumping. Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Big Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin'. The soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot-stomping, heart-stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are wrapping up our conversation with Anoa Changapek and Mondale Robinson, Executive Director of the Black Male Voter Project. And so when we, before the break, we were talking about, the challenges of mobilizing voters in our community. One, making sure that folks have the information that they need, persuading the voters. I think that's always the challenge, is that no one thinks that voters in our communities actually need to be persuaded, and they do, right? We have to give people a reason to want to show up and vote and give them the information. Andy and I have been talking about this, the California governor's race, for weeks now, about people need to understand who these candidates are and, which ones they feel like they are most closely aligned with. That doesn't happen through osmosis, right? Like, you actually have to have conversations with people. And that there are some attempts, as, the Democratic Party kind of ecosystem goes through this, who are we going to be and who do we want to be, and what voters do we care about most? There is this sort of back and forth about, what strategies are going to be. What are we going to do to make sure that voters are educated and mobilized? How much money are we going to spend? And so we talked a little bit about that before the break, and particularly around this sort of move away from, allowing paying community members to go and talk to other neighbors, right? Canvasses. We all know what canvassing is. People knock on our doors all the time and ask us to turn out and vote. But we're sort of seeing this argument that says don't do that anymore, just spend everything on social media. And so I wanted to, Noah, give you a chance to weigh in on that, because Mondale and I were kind of going back and forth, and I didn't get your voice in on that. But I know that you absolutely have to be seeing this in Georgia where you live, because as Mondale said money isn't moving very quickly. And I would say money is not moving at all to groups on the ground who are trying to engage Black voters right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely correct in terms of, one, the analysis around people don't want to invest in what we know is a tried and true. Just even looking a couple of weeks ago, everyone getting excited about the results out of Hungary, but there are so many examples we have in just the last 10 years alone of efforts here in the states that are being led by groups that both of you all lead, that are really moving people in community, whether it's in local elections or, state and federal elections. And so, no, we're not seeing the same investment. I mean, particularly when you're looking at the energy in 2020 amid the global pandemic, or in 2018 or 2022 when we had a Stacey Abrams at the top of the ticket, we're not seeing the investment in the same way. And it's not just because we don't have the same candidate with the name recognition, right? Because they've been doing a lot to drive name recognition around former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, but we're just not seeing the same investment and connection and commitment to actually getting people active and engaged, and really just around the concept that primaries do matter. This is the opportunity for us to vote our values and really get behind candidates we believe in before we're told we just got to get in line behind whoever the nominee is in November, right? And so really building that effort between now, people think the viral takedowns and stuff like, ooh, that's getting traction. But the same thing I used to say about a certain senator from Vermont in his big rallies don't translate into votes, and neither does the viral trends and stuff online. Like, people vote, polls and viral videos don't.
Right, that's right. And I think that in Mondale, I would also say that I don't think either you or I or Anoa would be saying spend no money on social media, right? Like, don't spend money on ads. I don't think any of us are saying that. But there is a way in which mobilization has happened, and there's sort of you could characterize it as disrespect to communities who have spent decades and generations figuring out how to mobilize in our community Black voters to the polls. And you have a class of consultants and strategists who make a lot of money, by the way, who are essentially saying, yes, actually, those people are wrong and don't know what they're doing. And that feels like that is what is emerging right now when we think about one of, a critical election in the history of America, right? As we approach America's 250th year anniversary, this is one of the most critical elections in the history of America. And there is some back and forth about whether or not we're going to actually go to people's doors and pull them out to participate.
I mean, let's be clear. We are still running ads, and we have to acknowledge this, not out of coordinates or being vain, but we live in a moment where baby boomers are no longer the determining factors of elections, meaning that they're not the largest electing portion of the electorate. They will never be again. We can't keep campaigning like it's 1979 when we started calling people. Spending the most money on ads and getting the least return on it has to be the most asinine business idea I've ever seen in politics, yet and still it remains, and it remains because of this consultant class. They make the most off of advertising. Even though we see every election cycle, the biggest gain in people who would not have participated in an election is conversations at their door with people who look and sound and feel like community to them. That can't be ignored. So we're left to ask ourselves, are we comfortable losing as long as this consultant class continues to get wealthy off of ads that are the least effective? Or do we really want to seize power, not for bad? And I'm so bad and angry at progressives who are running away or afraid to say that we need and want power. Because when we do have power and wield it, it's for the betterment of everybody. It's not for what Donald Trump is doing with power. It's not for what his administration and Justice Department is doing. It looks completely different. We protect people, even if they are 1% of the population, like the trans vote. We bring more people into the fold, like women's right to vote, Mm-hmm. And so I think the idea that we can continue to lie and say that canvassing and engaging people in community is not an effective way to be to do this work. It is simply to say that we are comfortable losing as long as the rich part of our class, our party, continues to get richer.
Yes, and I think that's a little bit of where we are. I don't think people would say it in that stark a way. And the challenge here is, as we're talking about, what needs to be done in the midterms, and how do we make sure that folks are informed and that they're engaged. Our ability to do that. And bring in more and more people also it impacts our ability to engage people in the policy fight. So I'm, going back to the earlier part of our conversation and the fact that you are trying to mobilize folks to go to the state capitol in North Carolina to push back against this land grab and water grab that the state legislature has said is okay for this power plant, but not just for the the data center. And to your point, it's not just about the data center; it's also about setting a precedent for one county to be able to a majority white county to be able to go into black counties and say we're taking these assets out. That what we're talking about right now in terms of being able to engage people. Inform people, right? Get people to actually turn out and take part in our democracy, not just voting, right? But the other pieces of democracy that we also need people to participate in is impacted by the kinds of decisions that get made around elections. It says something to people about whether or not just their vote, but their actual voice is respected.
That's a powerful statement. I mean, and we've already seen 40, 50 years of talking to black men, specifically, in my case with Black Men Voter Project, these people talking to black men for 50 years about how much their vote matters without showing these people that they matter. Right. So we need to stop looking at people as a vote and see they're human. And when we start addressing those, which happens by being in community, by knocking on doors, by having these conversations, then we can actually do something revolutionary, like change the fact that right now in this country, 27% of black men are super voters, meaning they vote regularly or in every election. And that's the same number that were voting 30 years after the 15th Amendment passed. So that means we're failing epically at this demographic, reaching this demographic with our tactics. And I would argue that the reason we are failing is because we don't prioritize these people and in their communities at their doors regularly. And we just show up as looking for a vote, not looking to be a mutual aid organization that's going to address the problems that's plaguing these folks.
Yeah, and that's the work that your organization does, which is so critical, right? Is not just the mobilizing folks during election cycles, but also trying to address the broader issues that people are facing and are challenged with, because the policy stuff obviously matters to people and affects people's day-to-day lives. And so I know that you all are, well, tell me, I was about to say, I think I know, but tell me, which states will you all be working in this election cycle?
Of course, we're at home in North Carolina, Georgia. We are evergreen in Mississippi, of course. We believe that with proper investment, Mississippi is not a bright red state. It is the blues of blue states. We're also in the 32 most eastern counties in Texas.
Well, talk about all the hot places in the 2026 midterm election: North Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, and we're going to talk about Mississippi soon here on the Black Pack, and Texas. Right? All states in the South. I don't know how we talk about Texas. Sometimes I think it's Southwest, but I don't know. But all states there where the hottest elections are happening. So, Mondale, I'm going to have you come back on and talk about some of the work that you're doing in the other states as well, beyond North Carolina, because it's just so critical in all of these states as we think about what is going to be required to get our people out for the 2026 midterm. So I appreciate you joining. Anoa, as always, appreciate you joining. When we come forward, we're going to have a conversation with Kendra Cotton about the work that's happening in Georgia to mobilize voters for 2026. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Several Chicago public schools parents are pushing back on the district's planned May Day civic activities.
Heaven forbid one child gets lost, that one thing happens to them.
Black CPS CEO Macklin King says no student will be required to take part, while some parents also object to teachers being paid during school hours for what they see as political activity. A former University of Michigan staffer says she became pregnant during her affair with former football coach Sharon Moore, who was black, but ended the pregnancy because of health concerns. Paige Shiver shared the claim in a recent Good Morning America interview, saying the relationship began in 2022 and was widely known in Wolverines athletics. And a South Carolina man convicted of burning a cross to intimidate his black neighbors is now facing federal charges. Prosecutors say Warden Evander Butler burned the cross in his Horry County backyard in 2023 and made threatening posts online. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning